so dark that you cannot see any light, and you don't even know if you'll ever see any light.
Survive and provide.
Sometimes we have to break our parents' hearts in order to break the cycle.
I think rooms are designed to make you feel like you don't belong in them. I still feel this now.
And as a man, you start to relate to those types of things of like, man, I know what you were going through.
The title of this project is called Without a Map. So it's just us discussing what it's like being men, growing up in this country, being children of immigrants. You know, our parents came here, came from a different lifetime, different culture. We kind of had to just be thrown into all of this without a map, no direction, probably lost the entire time, but somehow we kind of made it here to this point in our lives, which I think is a pretty big feat, you know, based on the challenges that we've had to go through being visible minorities. I kind of wanted to ask you guys, you know, what was your relationship with your parents or your dad growing up? Because I think that everything that exists now is obviously because of what happened before. So do we want to talk about like what that was growing up with your dad? But yeah, we can begin anywhere.
I'm gonna start before Mike has a sarcastic thing about his dad, which we know is coming.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have to say like a counterpoint. Like I actually didn't have a bad relationship with my parents or anything. Like it's totally let me stop the slam poetry before we get into the slam poetry. You know, like yeah, the dark chai of my walls in Kent. No, I had great parents. My parents like totally have no idea what I do to date.
Yeah.
Or any of my family. And it took me a while to just realize that all they wanted was me to succeed.
Yeah.
And there were set career paths that they knew about when they immigrated here, and they only knew those boxes. Mm-hmm. So every time I deviated from that, it caused stress.
Yeah.
And it took me until now to really realize like, oh, like they didn't not want me to do software engineering. They didn't not want me to do lighting. They just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
So I think like my answer back is just like, I think it's a two-way street, and I think it's up to us as well. Like, you know, a lot of people are like in therapy, what do they tell you? Like, like they blame other people.
Yeah.
But I think we have to take our own ownership, and I think it's okay to recognize like what's happening on both sides. And I think it's an ongoing process where you can like educate back and you can learn, and it's a two-way street of that. And I think that's like my biggest outcome of it is like, sure, there were like rocky points, but every time I take a step back, it was because they wanted the best.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then I guess, Mike, you're nodding. You want to tell us?
That's great. Like my father passed away when I was 14, so it's interesting like trying to analyze the path of your trajectory, and then one of the biggest things I'm wrapping my head around right now is just understanding that, you know, our parents are human, and I think they're also just adult children trying to navigate life as well.
Because when you think about it too, like, I mean, I'm 40 now, right? And when I think about like me being 20, like my parents had me when they were 20. I think about me being 20, I was not that smart, maybe, you know what I mean? Like to have had to raise children coming to a new country, not knowing the language, no money, no understanding of the culture, that's a pretty big task, you know what I mean? And like, I do think that like, you know, there's a lot of things my parents probably could have done better, but like you said, it's their first time living, you know, they don't know. And I think that we got to learn to kind of give grace for a lot of the things that we thought, because I think that they did things probably with good intention, but they probably don't know how it's gonna pan out. Because I think like parenting is like rolling dice and waiting for 10, 20 years for it to land. You know what I mean? And I think that like for those few years, like you really don't know, like, you know, like your parents might be like, oh, I just wanted to give you like a nice house and clothes and toys and stuff. You know, that's why I worked so hard. That's why I was never home. But maybe you're just like, yo, I just really wanted you to be at home to play with me, help me ride a bike. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that like, even like as a dad now, like I wonder like if what I'm doing is right, like if that is actually what they need.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like my relationship, it varies similar to yours too. Till this day, I can say I'm a creative director, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. They're gonna be like, okay, cool. Like, they don't really know what it means, but it seems like you're maneuvering life all right and you're doing good, and that's exactly the thing. They just want to make sure you're safe. But as I get older, especially with my dad, I've always had a great relationship with him, but as I get older and you start to like feel the responsibilities of growing older, like whatever comes with life, I got closer and closer and closer, because I'm like, oh, I understand what you're going through here, or I understand maybe the stress you might put on yourself with getting to work to support your family, or whatever that means, right? And so we start connecting, getting stronger as you go, because then as a man, you start to relate to those types of things of like, man, I know what you were going through. Or that time you were really quiet when you come home sometimes and, you know, whatever. I'm like, yo, I get that. I get that you were tired or exhausted. Or I get that, yeah, you were annoyed if it was noisy very late at night sometimes because you had to wake up at 5 a.m. Like, as you get older, and I guess what you're saying, as you become a parent, you start to relate on different levels of what you're going through.
See, that's interesting because like as somebody that doesn't have my father to have those kind of like reflections, I now reflect because I'm nearing the age that when he passed away. So I'm 39. He passed away when I was 41, and so I have this weird like, oh shoot, this is why you weren't around a lot, because you were so passionate about your career. I'm now walking in that same kind of path, and I'm like, oh shoot, like I get it, like. I understand I don't understand, but you know, as immigrants coming here and your first instinct is survive, provide. Whereas we're a little bit more privileged now, where it's like,
I gotta find art.
Oh yeah, I wanna feel fulfilled. You know what I mean? I wanna do what I wanna do.
Yeah.
But I think as I navigate now into my 40s, it's like, okay, so this is probably why you were too busy doing this, or this is probably why you weren't around to do X, Y, and Z, because you were still trying to find yourself. Because I'm still doing that. I am doing that at this age, and I can only imagine what that was like at your age.
Do you want to say something, Ivan?
Yeah, I love what you said about having love and grace for your father, because we adopt and inherit our traumas from our dad.
Yeah.
And our dads got it from
Their dads.
So my grandfather had 4 wives and like 20 some odd grandchildren or kids from different countries. So my dad grew up like with a very absentee father. So for him it was like, how do I be as present as I can? But there was also like 4 years where when we immigrated to Canada, my mom raised us while he was still working to provide for us to be here. So I lost those 5 years where I didn't have my father. And there was animosity towards that. There was judgment towards that. I felt like I was abandoned. I understood why he did it, but he wasn't there for me. So in my 20s, I casted judgment on him, you know, privately, personally. But then when I became a father, that's when I really understood, you know, a father's love and the type of sacrifice that you would do for your children. So, you know, in the last few years, I really just embrace the love and the grace and just understand, you know, we're all learning, we're all growing as persons, you know, as fathers.
Yeah. I mean, my dad didn't really have a dad either, right? And I think that for a lot of us, there's really not like a good role model that like our parents even have in the first place to sometimes be the person that we think we need. You know, like my dad, I probably only lived with him for like 5 years of my life. And I was pretty resentful like for a lot of it. Because I felt like he just abandoned me, you know, but as I got older and we had these conversations, I realized that there was so much going on that I didn't take in, you know, like the relationship, you know, the experience of like coming here. And I remember, I think I was like 32 and it was his birthday and I took him out. And then at the end, he was like, step out of the car, I need to talk to you. And then he was just like, I just wanted to apologize. And then he was just like, you know, I tried to be a father to you. I didn't know what I was doing. I was so young. I didn't understand what it meant to be a husband. I didn't understand what it meant to be a father. I failed you for like all these years and I wanted to apologize, but I never knew how. And I want to say I'm sorry. You know, I don't know how to fix this, but I just need you to know I'm sorry. He said it. We had like our moment. We cried. The first time I've ever seen him, he's never said sorry. He's never said I love you. I mean, at least I can't remember. And we definitely have never had like a moment where like we spoke about this together. But it was like the weirdest, heaviest, lightest feeling that I've ever had. And like my entire life, I didn't know this person. You know what I mean? And then it just kind of like brought something out. But like, it really does remind me that like, we're still learning, and like I said, just give grace, understand, and you know, we don't know what kind of fathers we're gonna be. Give grace, understand that like this is a path, and yeah.
It sounds like the collective, I guess, consensus in terms of this topic right now is the pulling back the curtain.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that saying, you know, people don't want to know how the meat's made. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're now kind of seeing that in terms of like, oh shoot, manhood.
Yeah.
Like, damn, like, you know, trying to, because our parents are our first window into life.
Yeah.
And we think they're our superheroes and they have it all figured out.
And they're perfect, yeah.
You know? And then as we go through life and we figure this out, we're like, ah, shoot.
You ain't
No, bro. But yeah, it's the general consensus of like, oh wow, we're pulling back the curtain in terms of like, you know, the trajectory of manhood and how to navigate that with or without a father, whether it's yourself or with friends or whatnot. But I find when it comes to men, it's the, oh shoot, the pressures of everything, and then trying to understand what's behind the pressures of everything.
Yeah.
I also think this conversation would have been extremely different if in this exact same room we had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure my answer would have been different. So I think
Times
that's
change,
like
yeah.
a very interesting, like, I'm looking around, like, we're actually all, like, you know, besides you guys having children,
Yeah.
we're actually kind of in similar states. Like, if there was one person here that was 25 or 21, it would be a really different answer, I feel.
Yeah.
Any of us, like, you know what I mean? Like, we flipped it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think even having a conversation where men are sitting around talking about these traumas, you know what I mean? I don't think this happened 20 years ago.
No.
You know? I mean, hopefully what we're doing now kind of inspires other people to talk, because, I mean, I yap about this a lot, but I feel like whenever I meet like other men and I talk about these things, it's like the first time they're ever having this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of men, they go through things, but when they don't really deal with it. They'll like, go have a beer, let's go watch a fight, you know, let's go watch some sports. And it's just chaotic and manic, you know what I mean? It's just like escapism, alcohol, you know, whatever. But it isn't like, yo, man, how have you been? What have you been going through? You know what I mean? Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that like society pressures us to be, you know, take pain, turn that into like maybe anger and aggression.
Turn it to hard work.
Yeah, and turn to hard work, right? Versus like addressing pain, maybe addressing the fact that we might need healing and recovery.
And that's probably all we knew, right? Like growing up, like I don't know, like you're not speaking to your father, but your feelings like that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like I wasn't, and again, it wasn't until now where we like have real conversations, and he's more comfortable speaking now. And then, but it's kind of great because I'm sure like maybe he talks to his friends more and opens up his friends. Like it starts somewhere. So I think our generation and younger have opened this gate to affect people that are younger than us, but not only that, like people older than us. Because I speak to my dad way more now, and I see how he probably interacts with some of his friends and whatever. So it's like, all right, we're gonna radiate outwards. So I think that's just like a beautiful thing of, it's not just for the next generation. I think we're still affecting the people.
Yeah, we're healing even our parents, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is the idea of representation. You know what I mean? Like growing up, what we saw on TV, you know, what we saw in movies, what we saw maybe in like pop culture. I guess, what did you see that reflected your culture? How did that make you feel? Was it something that you felt that like you were proud of? Were you kind of like embarrassed of it? You know, like did it make you feel better or worse about who you were? You know, like what did you guys see on TV like growing up that like maybe affected you in any way?
I had almost two different childhoods. Because my first 10 years, I was, you know, born and raised in Hong Kong. And then from 10 on, I came to Canada, so I had to adapt and pivot. But growing up in Hong Kong, it was, you know, Young and Dangerous, the Triad movies. It was Bruce Lee with my dad.
Yeah.
Like, it was cool. Like, you know, Asians were cool. Then when I came here, it was like, there was none of that. It was Jackie Chan, the funny guy.
Yeah.
You know, and any other Asian character in Hollywood was the funny, you know, they were just funny. They weren't cool. They like emasculated us, you know, the Asian men. So it was very interesting to go from that to here.
And then the male was never like a a love interest or like a desired being.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there was like a lack of like, I feel like for me, for seeing someone that looked like me on TV, like, I don't know, like, who was it? And then there was always probably someone funny, just like comedic relief. And there was no, it's hard to be a complex human being and not see any complexities on TV. Like, you know, you're not like getting a George Clooney complex, smart doctor, heartthrob, this, that, drive the motorcycle. You're not seeing that, and you're just like, oh, well, okay, I'm just represented as the funny guy, but that's it. It's like one layer. And just as a human watching it, you're like,
yeah, we're just there for comedic relief. We're just a gesture.
yeah,
a gesture.
throw
sorry.
that in there. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
I know. I think it's actually, it's really funny being a Guyanese person sometimes because there's two sides. My family's massive. Like an average wedding in my family is like 800 people. So it's like my grandmother has 12 siblings. Some of them live in New York, some of them live here, right? So like every time I would spend time around the family, it's like, yeah, we're people. Like, this is what Guyanese people do. This is what Jamaican people do. Like, this is what people in Barbados do, right? And it was like really, you know, you go to the West Indian store and you would see like all this stuff going on, and like there was a strong sense of this, and I would feel that. And then I would go into school and I'd be like, I'm Guyanese. And besides the other Caribbean people, everyone's like, what is that? And I'm like, well, I'm not Indian. And they're like, oh, okay. They're like, that makes sense. So I mean, I think it was confusion. Like I think there wasn't ever like an actual like, who is that? Like, that belong. But at the same time, I had a very strong sense for my family and like seeing all of that in presence. So I think that was what was kind of the divide between like what's what. And I think it still is.
Yeah. Mike?
It's interesting because like I had a similar story to you, but kind of the reverse. Like I was born in Vancouver, but then moved to the Philippines when I was 9 and then lived there for 5 years. And so like I remember up until before the Philippines, I didn't really take in wanting to see an Asian person like representing us in media or whatnot. Like a lot of my heroes are either white, black, Hispanic, you know, not a lot of Filipinos, let alone Asians. And so when I moved to the Philippines, and then kind of, that's a whole nutshell in its own, but in terms of the seeing yourself, when I got there, for some reason I had this weird like, this is corny, this is lame, this is cringe. Like, I don't want to be too cultured because then you come off too fobby. But then if you don't lean into your culture, you're kind of like excommunicated from your culture. So it's like this weird dance that we do in North America as colored people, so to speak. But I think like as I lived there and I started to understand more like, oh wow, like, you know, there's a Filipino singer, Filipino movie actor and whatnot. And so I was like, oh cool, like that's great. And then coming back here, it's like, to your point, like, okay, I have to make myself feel small again. And, you know, especially in the early 2000s, like it was not kind to like our identity in terms of being desired, marketable, all of that under the sun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a bit of it too, right? Like we grow up, there's no examples of anything cool, you know, like we're just like food, and we're like, what else? Kung fu, or just, I don't know, or just whatever it is that like, you know, like comedic thing that they want to make fun of, right? Like, and even if we aren't what's portrayed, we're just categorized as such. It's like, oh, like you must do this, right? Because I saw it in a movie, you know, you must do this, right? Because I heard it in a song, you know what I mean? And it's like, we didn't even have the ability to kind of like just be ourselves. We were always kind of like in this place of like fighting stereotypes, fighting what everyone else believed that we were, you know, like another thing is just that like, I was talking about the other day is that, you know, representation is important, but sometimes the flaw in this kind of concept is that, you know, for us, it's like, you know, we do a good thing or a bad thing. It's not just us, it's the entire culture that gets like pinned down to this one thing. One guy's smart, you're all smart. One guy's dumb, you're all dumb. One guy's dirty, you're all dirty. You know what I mean? Like, but then you have like white folks, John could just be John. Yeah. If John's smart, John's smart. But not all white people are smart because of John, you know what I mean? Like, but that's the thing is that like, we don't have individualism. You know, like we're stuck to this idea of like a collective I don't know, a caricature of sorts, you know, that like we have to kind of like consistently fight through. You know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of this anger and these things that go along, like it's pressure for us to be different and fight, you know, like, and that sometimes becomes, I feel like the weight of being like a male minority. You know what I mean? Is that like, we can't just be, we have to fight stereotypes all the time. It's like, I can't just do this. It's like, I gotta prove you wrong. It's so much more than just, I want to be. It's that I have to be because I have to fight you too. You know what I mean? And I think that becomes a pretty heavy thing for all of us.
I feel like it's almost second nature to us.
Yeah.
That like we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
You know? Because it starts when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And it's just ingrained in you almost, but that's a good take.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel with what you guys do professionally? Like, do you guys take into consideration of, you know, inspiring the younger, like, versions of us, so to speak, in terms of like, okay, now we're the role models.
Yeah.
You know, now we're the representation.
That we
do you
never
take
had.
that in consideration, like, with what you guys do?
For my industry, yes. Like from the very beginning, and this is actually a story I'll share. It motivates me almost every day. 22, when I started my fitness company, I had to get incorporation. Like, I've never incorporated a company before. So I had a lawyer that I was referred to. She was a Chinese lawyer, Asian lawyer. And I was a 22-year-old kid just registering my business. And she's like, what business are you? And I explained to her, it's fitness, it's in-home personal training company. We're gonna have, you know, instead of people going to the gym, the trainers will come. And she's like, why fitness? It's not for Asians. It's for white people. You're not gonna make it. And I was so discouraged. She still registered my business, but I was so discouraged. And I sat in the parking lot for like a while after that. I'm like, I just paid her money, got demotivated. That's hard. For her to like make fun of me. I'm like, what just happened? So in my fitness industry, you know, it's predominantly, obviously, you know, white, you know, background. So it's been a battle, man.
So let me go back to that for a second. Why do you think that it's a predominantly white industry?
I think like fitness, health is not really part of the culture, like the Asian culture. Like growing up, you know, here everyone has a gym memberships, everyone goes to the gym, but there, like the women don't go. Like my mom's never lifted weights until she was 16. I'm like, Mom, you gotta lift weights. So I think it's a bit of that. Yeah.
I think, not to say that you're wrong or anything, I think that my take on this is that like, maybe this is a bit too deep or analytical, but I think that like, fitness is a luxury to some people, right? It's like a leisurely thing, right? Like you do it after you have enough money, after you've paid your bills, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and I think that a lot of like minorities have the weight of like, I gotta do more, I gotta work more, I gotta provide, I gotta look after people. I can't look after me because that's selfish. You know what I mean? Like my mom's waiting, my brother's waiting, my culture's waiting, I don't know, like I have to provide. So because of that, we don't really probably prioritize our bodies and health because we carry the weight, this emotional weight of like, I gotta get it done, and to work on me is to ignore you, you know? So I think that like, in that way, that psychological, emotional part of it is that like, that's why we won't go to the gym, or maybe that's why we won't care about wellness, or we don't care about like eating right, or maybe even therapy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, power on, don't cry, suck it up, get your shit done. You know what I mean? There's no time for this like what are you working out to do? Are you fighting somebody? You know, are you working out because you're building a moving company? No, I'm just trying to be healthy. For what? You know? And I think that's like a bit of like the psychological reason to like, because I know that's why I did it. Like, I'll give you guys an example. So, I think 3 years ago, my back was so messed up. I couldn't walk, couldn't lay, couldn't sleep, couldn't run, couldn't anything. And I went to to a physiotherapist, and then she was just like, do you sleep? Like, how often do you sleep? And I was like, on average, like four hours a night, maybe 5. She goes, why don't you sleep more? And I was like, because I gotta work. She goes, well, what do you do? And then I told her what I did, but she was like, that's a lot of stuff. Like, why do you need to do so many things? And I said, because I gotta look after my parents, I gotta look after my family, I gotta look after my peoples. And then she's like, but why do you have to do this much? Like, do they all need you? And I was like, maybe, but I also think that I'm racing against the clock because I want to do things while it still matters, right? So I need to get there now. And then she was just like, you know, you need sleep, right? Like you need to rest and you need to like look after yourself. And I was like, I want to, but I don't have the time. I gotta keep going. And then as we kept talking, the physiotherapist said to me, I think you're depressed. She's like, I can't actually diagnose you with depression, but your whole body is saying that you're depressed. Your whole body is shutting down because you're carrying too much emotional weight that your body can't function. You know what I mean? And I never really took in like how deep that was and how that affected you physically. I thought it was always just like a mental thing, just work, but you don't realize like how much, you know, that does to you.
And did that conversation change the way you took care of your sleep and health?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I think that I try, but I think that I try to balance it out in different ways. You know what I mean? Like just making more time, like to come like, do wellness things, like, you know, like a cold plunge in sauna, you know, like eating better, you know, like instead of like dinners out, I try to do like things that are like good for my body, you know? Understanding that like we're actually not invincible. You know what I mean? I think that like when we're young, we're just like, yo, let's just keep doing everything. I can do it until you break down. And then you realize that like, how silly, you know? How arrogant of me to believe that I could have done it all on my own. But yeah.
It's good.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
awareness was there.
Yeah. It's very hard, you know, very hard to carry through, but yeah. So I also want to talk about, were you guys like pretty like aggressive like growing up? Like how did you guys deal with things as, you know, like as grown men now we talk about it. I mean, we're talking about it right now. I think that we're a bit more aware of how to deal with these things, but how are you guys dealing with things as you were younger, and how do you feel like you could have been different? What could have you told yourself back then to deal with a lot of the pain or even things that you might not even really recognize until now?
I'm a guy that goes quiet. Like I'm not aggressive or yelling. Like I'll just go dark, like quiet, like fighting myself in my head. Probably because, you know, like my mom's a teacher, so she would like, you know, like school, like think about what you say before you say it. And then I guess if I'm angry or whatever, I'll just start battling myself in my head. I'll be quiet, battling my head. When I feel like I've battled it or got over it, then I'll come back out. And I feel like, you know, maybe my dad is the same way. Like as a man, you deal with stuff in your head and then you just come back out of it. But everyone deals with it differently. Like some people are like outwards angry. Sometimes feel like I wish I could do that because it gets some of it out, which I think is also kind of healthy. And some people just go dark, but I'm definitely leaning on, I'm more like go quiet, disappear for a bit, and come back to life.
Do you think that was helpful though? Like, or do you think that like, had you had a different support system or like boys to talk to or like a podcast to listen to or like different films or different music, do you think that would have changed the way that we might have grown up?
For sure. I think now it's even great because like you could throw on a podcast or something and what you're thinking about, or you could pull some from your thoughts, whether it's like relationship, money, life, like you could put something on and be like, oh, I relate with what they're saying. I get it. Rather than going by yourself, thinking about it, coming to some sort of conclusion in your head because you're just talking to yourself, right? And coming back out. So I think nowadays media, although it can sway you so many ways and could be too loud, it's also a good like, you know, pulse check on how people are kind of feeling, you know?
I think a bigger thing was actually, I think, again, like using the 10 years ago analogy. Like I think as a kid it's whatever, like, you know, whatever. I'm sure we all get little scuffles here and there, you know, for kind of pointless reasons. I bet half the time we were like fighting the fake gangs, you know, like you're fighting the other Asian dudes and then like you're fighting with like what gang? None of us were in gangs. Like, but beyond that, like, I mean, I think that's almost, I still think that's funny and maybe that's good, you know. I think everyone needs a bit of conflict.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing was actually like getting started in a professional career and holding your tongue. Yeah. Because a lot of times I think rooms are designed to make you feel like you don't belong in them. Mm-hmm. I still feel this now. Like there are still meetings I go into where I'm like, I actually have to tell myself beforehand, like I am a professional. Like I've been doing this 15, 20 years. Like I know what I'm doing. Like I can't get taken off track. Like I run a real company. Like these are things I tell myself sometimes. But I think that was actually the more interesting part because when you're put into a room where you don't, like you've never seen someone from your family in a room like that. Like never mind media. Like it's like if you call your parents, you're like, hey, I went to this meeting with like BMO, they're like, oh, like to get a loan, they're like, no, I'm trying to get them to like do something. They're like, why would they say yes to you? And I'm like, accurate. So I think that's like one of the biggest things is that because, you know, we don't have necessarily family that you can call on. Like, it's like, man, you need someone to do drywall, plumbing, like an electrician. My uncles got my back. Like they got me covered no matter what. But I'm like, when I need a lawyer because I'm in like a weird PR situation, they're like, so you should probably just leave the country. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, you should just run.
Just go back to where you came from.
Yeah, they're like, yeah. I think that happened to me, and that's why I'm in Canada now, right? We don't even know what happened. I changed my name. You know, so I think that's actually one of the most interesting parts is like, how do you belong in that room and know that you can actually speak in it? And I think that's what's important and I say this like, never mind like men, color, whatever. Like, I just think it's important to find people you can talk to about what you're doing. Yeah. And like, you know, whatever, even if they're in your industry, it's even better, I think, completely outside of your industry. Like just talking to other people that are doing similar things. Like as crazy as it sounds, pitching yourself as a DJ is not that different than pitching yourself as a photographer. Yeah. And it's not even that much different than doing a marketing pitch. You know, they're all actually the similar things and you kind of got to believe in yourself a little bit to do that. So I think that's actually the most important thing is like, helping other people believe in each other, but also being realistic. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you shouldn't buy that podcast mic.
It's funny you said that because I was thinking about like what you're saying. I resonate with that, but then you were saying, do you ever think about how you're affecting generation under? Because you're the people they're looking up to now that look like you when we're talking about representation. And to what Anil was saying, like, yeah, it's great because even as a creative, understanding people in or outside your industry, but it's like, hey, you're a photographer, but you understand this and this and this. There's 100 different paths you could take. Like, I didn't know I could work inside, like you said, like maybe like the BMOs or the Deloittes or whatever from being a creative. And I didn't know all the other things in there that are even transferable skills and thinking differently. And I think that's so important because, yeah, like I started in photography and I'm like, well, here's my past kind of. And then once I started talking to different people and seeing what other people are doing, like, oh, I can actually transfer and do any of this and work inside any organization that you kind of want to, which so that kind of sat with me. So that was. Did
you want to say anything or no?
I've been raised with the concept of like a man's value is based on what he provides. So like from the time I was a kid and also like growing up in like Asian school, Chinese school system, it's very competitive, right? They rank you by like classrooms and then the school, the grades, the region, and it's such a competitive upbringing that I felt like, you know, with ADHD as well, like I've always just been like, go, 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 do. And as I just grew older, I realized like I've learned less is more, right? You know, your value as a human being is really how you serve others and how you help others and not what you can gain and what you could provide for yourself and for your family. So I've had to like transition out of what I've learned culturally into like now as I head into my 40s, like what does that next 40 years look like? You know, is it about doing more for myself and being more, or is it about like how do I serve other people and help the younger generation, share the mistakes that I've learned so I can time collapse, you know, their mistakes and their time to success. So that's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do agree with you. I think that as we get older, our purpose begins to evolve and change. You know, when we were younger, I think that there was a lot to prove and do and to execute. And I think that as we kind of enter this next phase, I'm starting to learn that like my purpose is servitude. You know what I mean? Is that like, how do I provide and help, inspire, give opportunity? It's not about me shooting. It's about like, how do I put on the next person to shoot? You know what I mean? Like, how do I teach? And like, the idea of legacy becomes a big thing, right? Like, you know, you and I have children. So it's like, for me, it's like, how do I build the world that our children or my children like walk into next? You know what I mean? Like, if we have the ability and access to kind of make the change, will we? You know? And to touch on what you said earlier, I think the idea of like, and I think we said over here too, is that the idea of us having no map, being without a map, and not ever really knowing these people or these things, like, I think that us being, children of immigrants, the values that I think that one of the good values that we've taken from them is the idea of adaptability and the idea of like always like walking into a new room, knowing that you don't necessarily belong, but finding a way to belong. So it's either I'm gonna belong to you, or I'm just gonna set up my own place of belonging. And I think that that's what we've had to kind of do through time. And I think that like, that's created us to be very resilient people. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of people who like grow with privilege, and that's great too, But I think that us having to go through all these things that we once hated or once like really like frustrated us is probably become our superpower, unknowingly. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but.
I feel like to that superpower of adaptability, as having immigrant parents that maybe have their own kind of map that they're trying to figure out, going back to the whole like provide, survive for the family. It's like, I look at all of us and it's like our parents are bringing us to the playground, which is the world, and that's them, immigrating to Canada or whatnot.
Yeah.
And now we're in this playground, and we're all just like,
Who do I play with?
Can we build this together? Blah, blah, blah. And that's us now. And I think to the whole no map thing, it's like, what is a map? I think
Where are we going?
Where are we going? What are we doing? I think everybody, to their best of our abilities, we just try to go with what falls in on our path, and that's the adaptability part. Like, I think as somebody who's an Asian DJ, like, I didn't see a lot of Asian DJs. So I'm like, what does that path look like for that? There isn't one. And so you kind of just figure it out, do what you can, make some mistakes, hopefully you'll learn, and you keep going. And then, by the time you hit that 40 mark, you're kind of like, oh shoot, well, I just made a map now.
Yeah. I'm actually going somewhere.
Yeah.
See, Mom?
Hold on, can I actually quote Mike Rock for a second?
Yeah.
You say this all the time. Like, in a lot of rooms, you're not Filipino enough. And then and when you go back to the Philippines, you're not Canadian enough. And I think for a long time, that was one of the most detrimental things I ever felt. Like, in a room, like, am I being brown enough? Am I like urban enough?
Yeah.
And like, then when I walk back into a room with a client, I'm like, am I too urban? Like, am I, alienating? And some people use this to alienate other people, which is a confusing thing that I don't use and I never will understand. But I think that's also exactly what you said, that adaptability is why we can continue to move. So I think a lot of this is like, how do we take what was like our weakness or what was like the thing that was bad, and how do we use that as a point of something that we can keep building from? And I think that's exactly that. We take that, we weren't enough there, and we're like, oh, actually we know how to change. Like, code switch is a weird word, but I mean, we know how to adapt to the right environment. And I think that's what we continue to do. And that's sort of what it is being in this modern era. And like, maybe that's like the map we found when you look back, is that we saw how to be in the right spot at the right time. We didn't know it yet, but when you look back, you kind of were.
Yeah, when you look back, you see the path, but looking forward, you really don't know where you're going. Yeah.
You only connect the dots backwards.
Yeah.
Forwards. But about the rooms, one thing I learned is from a mentor, be in rooms where you're the dumbest one, right? So where you're the most uncomfortable, that's the room you want to be in, and keep being in there. And then when you go into a different room, that's where you want to teach from everything you've learned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good.
Energy,
it's good.
Yeah, knowledge flow. Are you guys familiar with this concept? I guess the question is, what do you think the modern male is going through now, especially like with the ideas of like the male loneliness epidemic? I think that like as the world evolves, and things change and society begins to think differently, I think that women begin to find themselves in different positions where, where traditionally they might have needed a man to kind of like live and survive. And I think that obviously isn't the scenario, that isn't what is being taught in society anymore. You know what I mean? I think that like our moms might believe that I needed a husband and whatever, but I don't think women feel that way anymore. And how does that And then obviously, there's just a whole bunch of like, it's a concoction of things happening in society that's causing, men to be a bit more isolated, a bit more maybe timid or whatever. I think it's almost like the reverse of like men being aggressive back then, and then men almost kind of becoming the opposite in some sort of strange way. I don't fully understand it entirely, but what do you guys think about that? And like, how should men be like to kind of like become the person that we need for the future, the person that we need for like next generations, the person that they need to become to be better to future partners or the people that depend on them? Like, how do men need to heal, or how do men need to grow from this point?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of us here coming from like the same generation, the generation before us was the whole like, man up, just power through, don't be a
Yeah.
excuse my language. But then, we had a bit of that, but then now we're coming into like learning how to be softer and healing. So there's a bit of that residue. Whereas like, I feel like the newer generation, it's the, your feelings matter, and gentle parenting and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do, but I find that our generation it's like we came from war with ourselves, and that PTSD of our personal struggles, whether you went through it or solved it or not, like, we start to sit with it more as we get older, and then you reflect more, and then
Now we're the uncles that we used to laugh at, just like yapping all the time about the past.
I always say, man, I'm that uncle now that's like still trying to be young and is tatted and is doing all these cool things and it's whatever. And
You're still DJing?
yeah. Let me know when you need guest lists when you get older. Yeah.
When you can drink.
Yeah, when you want to get your first tattoo, I'll be there. Yeah. But no, I think to wrap up what I was talking about, it's the forever just trying to navigate. And then going back to the whole path thing, it's the best path is no path, I feel.
Yeah, it gives you the freedom to kind of maneuver and be flexible and be yourself, as opposed to being what everyone needs you to be or what everyone has been before.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when we look at our parent generation and we're like, we watch them struggle and navigate life, and we're just like, I don't want to do that. I want to figure out my in the way that I can, as well as feeling fulfilled and not just doing something to do it, to provide kind of thing.
I mean, me and Aaron have said this before, but sometimes we have to break our parents' hearts in order to break the cycle. You know what I mean? Like, we have to break what they expect of us, what the generations expect of us, because if we just keep doing the same loops based on their understanding, then we're all kind of going through exactly like, there's no need for this generation to do the same thing as the last, right? Which kind of brings me to the topic of like generational oceans. You know what I mean? Like, I've had this discussion before, but it's like, our parents all crossed an ocean to be here, left behind everything they ever knew, the language, their home, their food, their communities, family, everybody, to be here, whether it was for us or for them, but point is, we've kind of like inherited that kind of benefit. And then I ask you guys, like, what do you feel is your generational ocean? Like in our lifetime, what is our great sacrifice where we've changed something great for the next?
Wow, that's a great question.
Just to touch on the previous point, because I think it's important, because men growing up in this day and age is very different from how we grew up, without the phones, without the social media. Loneliness wasn't really a big thing for us because we had friends that we actually met up with. Hey, I'm gonna meet you at the park at 5, and I better see you at 5 because we're gonna have some fun. Otherwise, you're staying home and I'm staying home. But now social media makes you so lonely. It's a fact, right? You're seeing everyone's highlight reel. It's competition, and for men, it emasculates a lot of men. And I think the women are also going after the top 10% of men. So 90% of the men are not desired from women. So they're facing this constant battle. And I love what I'm seeing with the women culture. I think I saw a study, in 5 years, there's gonna be 2 female graduates to 1 male graduate. So women are getting smarter, they're making more money, but they're fighting the inner masculine and the feminine, where like I'm feminine. I have to make more than my man has to make more than me. But that's not the case, right? The trend is going the opposite. So we got to figure out a way to lift the other men up, like the younger men. We have to, because it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be a toxic feminine masculine culture. So how do we do that? And I think we have to start with like rooms like this, right? Where men in isolation is a recipe for disaster. Let's get men together to talk about how do we build each other?
Yeah.
How do we build the younger generation? How do we sharpen the
At a
younger
deeper level,
generation
yeah.
and lift them up? Because otherwise our daughters are going to be growing up with, like weak men.
Yeah.
And like, you know what weak man does to the economy, to the culture, right?
Yeah.
So
You have to, it's interesting because we're kind of refining what a man is supposed to be right now. You know what I mean? Like, we saw what men were when men were supposed to be looking to past generations, and now it's kind of finding that balance of like, okay, well, a man can be this or it can be this. There are certain principles that have transferred down, but you don't have to be just this singular provider that has to do all this and your wife has to be at home or what. Like, it's a refinement of what a man could be. But I do agree with you, like having those bases that have been passed down from generations also important to uphold. And then on social media, like you said, there's younger men and boys that are watching these people, like maybe they're like these super alpha male people that are ripped and maybe they're driving crazy cars or whatever. One, it's like, okay, this guy's like 25 and has all this, but does he really have all this, right? One, there's a huge finesse. So you're skewed of like, yo, by the time I'm 25, I need to be ripped and this and that and whatever. And two, it's kind of like you actually don't even see the process to get there. Like, like back in the day, if you saw someone successful, more times you'll see their journey or see their climb, or maybe they have a nice car, then they have to go back. Then they have to take 4 steps back and then they come back stronger. You know what I mean? You kind of see this in real life. But on social media, you kind of just get delivered, like you said, the highlights, the fake or the finesse, and you actually don't even see what it takes to get there, if it's true. So it does affect a lot. It does affect a lot for the next gen.
I think with the generational ocean, our biggest thing is finding a purpose. And I use this analogy all the time. Like, for a lot of our families, wherever they came from, the church or religion was the pillar. It gave you a reason. It gave you, like, in Hinduism, there's like books, and one teaches you like how to live and how to die. But that's the same across every religion. Yeah. Like the whatever the religious teaches you is it teaches you how to be born, and then how to die, and what to do in between. Yeah. That's where you go to get your wedding. That's how you get your children done. And you kind of, like, to go back to evolutionary principles, we check off the boxes. Yeah. Like, we procreate. Like, everything is based on like how do you reprocreate and like have the best chance of success for procreation, like continuing life. So that being said, I think our ocean to cross is finding out what that purpose is and how do we move towards that as a community while keeping people together, and what do you do after that? And I think that's the question that I even think about sometimes. Like, why do we do this? Yeah. Like, it's like, again, like we can look at our parents, it was easy. They came here, they had to make enough money to like keep a bunch of mouths fed. And that was really the goal. Yeah. And then maybe like they'll take care of you. Yeah. Or, hopefully. I mean, that's the plan. But if you look, like, that's like what like animals do. Like, again, and we are animals, right? So I think now we're in this weird place where we have so many different competing ideologies flying around. So how do we choose one that is like the right, and what is the right? Yeah. And I think that's the question that I have no idea what the answer is.
I agree. Anybody else want to answer that?
I think, personally speaking, when it comes to the ocean crossing, for me, it's just, how do I make it to tomorrow? And I think for my ocean is my mental health. It's how do I conquer the healing that I got to go through, which also dictates how I function as a human being, because that bleeds. Yeah. How you treat people, how you treat your partner, how you treat your career and yourself. Yeah. And so I think like my biggest thing is just trying to make sure that I'm always regulating myself, in and out of therapy. One of the biggest things I heard from like 3 therapists was, it sounds like, I would vent about a partner or a friend, and we, oh, she did this or he did that. And then the therapist was just like, it sounds like you're not talking to them. It sounds like you're talking to like your dad. And a lot of that is like, oh man, like, you know, you think you resolved a lot of your, I don't want to say issues, but like dilemmas, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then 40, you're like, oh, dude, that still hits. And you're kind of like,
It's crazy because you think that at this age you might have like figured out you're smart enough to kind of heal from these things, only to realize that like the doesn't actually go away until you actually sit down and really, really go through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to assuming that like age will just make you better. You know, the age doesn't matter if you don't put in the work.
And our parents, you know, didn't have the luxury to think about their mental health, right? Again, we keep saying like they had to just survive and provide. So now we're in a position where like, okay, like I can think about that, not just for me, but like everybody behind me in my family and the generational part of that.
Yeah.
So breaking that generational curse of being more mindful of the mental health, I think that's my ocean.
Last thing I wanted to say was just that, how do you guys feel about today's conversation? What do you guys think about like the takeaways? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel a bit different? I know that we talked about a bunch of things and it probably went through pretty quickly, but like how necessary do you guys find that these conversations are?
I think it's very comforting that more rooms and conversations like this are happening for men. Like I always talk about like men's mental health, and you know, there's a time where I'm like, no one gives a about men's mental health, neither do men.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when it comes to trying to inspire the younger generation, I think that's the campaign that I'm trying to lead with. Like, you know, I don't want to inspire more people to be DJs.
Yeah.
Like, how about we inspire more people to be healthier mentally?
Yeah.
Which is still so taboo, and I don't want to sound negative. Like, I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. But these are now the foundational pillars that are happening, and it's comforting.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's really important, and we touched on it a little bit earlier on, that, you know, we inherently from our parents keep moving, right? We're able to adapt. We're able to keep going. And sometimes, you know, we are writing our own journey, but sometimes we kind of confuse motion and momentum for direction. You know, so these kinds of talks with your boys, your brothers, and things like this, or whoever's watching this, to take a step back and talk about it, that helps you like pick up your step and find direction. Because I think we're all good at having motion, or like us in this room, finding motion and momentum, it's there. And taking a step back and having these conversations, finding direction, you know, like you were talking about servitude, like finding direction, not just in your career, but in your life and for your mental health is important. So I think something like this, even after this conversation, has me thinking about stuff too. And the more of these you have with your boys, the better it is. Yeah.
I think it's just a reminder of the importance of empathy. In every single room you're in, you can learn something from someone else, and you can also see something else from their perspective. And I think rooms like these are always great examples of to always be empathetic in every room you go into, and just remember that.
Yeah, it was great for me to listen to like all your backstories and your upbringing, different perspectives. I think for me, this conversation triggers a question of like, okay, how do we further this? Like, what's the next step? Because the men need it. Now, how do we put them in rooms where the conversations are happening and there are key takeaways that they're gonna take actionable steps in to better their health? For me, it's always been about physical health, right? My whole entire life, right? Fitness has been my life. And then from physical, mentally, you become stronger because you're overcoming, you know, the challenges you face in the gym. And it wasn't until I hit my rock bottom about 3 years ago where I understood, wow, like mental health, spiritual health, right? When you're on the brink of, you know, ending your life. And I got to that point, that's when I realized, wow, like men could get there. Like this could happen. And you could be so dark that you cannot see any light, and you don't even know if you'll ever see any light. So, you know, and as we grow older, we're gonna face situations in our lives. We're gonna lose lives, parents, you know, grandparents. So how do we better ourselves and navigate those times and help the younger generation, you know? Because Like suicide rates for men is significant.
That's a whole other hour.
Right?
Yeah. That's a whole other hour.
Like divorce rates,
Yeah.
you know, for men, how that cripples men is brutal. So like, now I'm thinking in my head, like, how do we do a better job, right? As now leaders, you know, 30s help the 20s, 40s help the 30s, and just keep passing it on.
Yeah. Well, I guess to wrap it up, I just want to say thank you to you guys for making time to kind of like have this very vulnerable and open conversation. You know, isn't an entirely easy conversation to have, but I think that we're grown enough and mature enough to kind of handle this. So hopefully this kind of carries on through the community and to the culture and to the generation and kind of provide some sort of hope and healing. But thank you, and thank you to Represent ASIAN Project. Thank you to Madelyn. Thank you to CAMH. And yeah, thank you, boys. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Love you, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
Nice to meet you, bro. Thanks for opening up.
Love you, bro. Love you too.
Nice to meet you, bro.
Was it?